History is often presented as a pristine mosaic of royal crowns, ceremonial robes, and shining palaces. But behind every portrait of a smiling monarch lies a shadow the public was never meant to see. Power, when concentrated in the hands of one person, becomes a force strong enough to hide the darkest truths beneath polished marble floors and sealed archives. The most famous rulers we admire or fear were not merely symbols of authority. They were architects of secrets, some so deeply buried that only fragments of evidence remain today. These hidden stories challenge everything we think we know about the people who shaped entire eras. While people often imagine monarchs as distant figures locked in ivory towers, the reality is far more human and far more troubling. Their lives were mixtures of ambition, fear, and calculated silence. Many of their deepest secrets were forged from desperation, political threats lurking nearby, betrayals within palace walls, or personal inclinations that clashed with expectations. To the public, monarchs embodied perfection. To themselves, they were often prisoners of the very thrones they sat on. The deeper we dig, the more we uncover truths carefully crafted to remain in the shadows, hidden behind centuries of curated narratives. One of the most chilling secrets comes from the court of King Henry VIII of England, whose dramatic marital history has been recited for generations. Yet what most people don't know is that Henry kept a private intelligence network inside his palace. Spies disguised as household servants, musicians, and even priests. These informants reported directly to him on everything from political whispers to the emotional states of his wives. The king's paranoia ran so deep that anyone who spoke too freely, even in jest, risked disappearing. Henry never wanted the world to know how much fear governed his decisions, because fear, to a king, was a sign of weakness. This obsession with control intensified after the fall of Bullen. Henry secretly ordered the destruction of letters that painted and in a sympathetic light, letters that historians believe could have softened her legacy and revealed Henry's darkest insecurities. It wasn't just power he wanted, it was control over history itself. By eliminating proof that contradicted his version of events, Henry ensured future generations would see, and as a villain rather than a victim of political manipulation. But fragments survived, hinting at a truth far more complex, and revealing a king terrified of losing His longest-kept secret was a medical one, an agonizing anal fistula that plagued him for months. In public, he walked with the confidence of a god-king. In private, each step brought excruciating pain. The truth was known only to a handful of trusted surgeons sworn to secrecy. While France saw him as a symbol of divine power, Louis battled a condition that nearly killed him. Even after a brutal surgery performed without anesthesia, all records were buried or coded to protect the illusion of immortality. His people worshipped the Sun King, unaware of the darkness he endured behind closed doors. Meanwhile, in Russia, Catherine the Great cultivated an image of enlightened leadership, yet her rise to power was coated in layers of conspiracy. One of her most closely guarded secrets involved the mysterious death of her husband, Peter III. Official records depict his demise as a natural event, but whispers within the court paint a more sinister picture. Many believe Catherine privately approved the plot to remove him, fearing that his erratic decisions would plunge Russia into chaos. Her supporters hid the truth to protect her reputation, ensuring that her reign would begin not as a result of treachery, but of destiny. Catherine lived with this buried secret for the rest of her life, and though she emerged as one of Russia's greatest rulers, the guilt followed her through the halls of the Winter Palace. She created cultural reforms, strengthened education, and expanded Russian territory, yet behind every achievement lingered the memory of a throne secured through blood. To the world, she was a visionary monarch. To herself, she was a woman who had survived betrayal by participating in one. Her private writings reveal moments of melancholy, suggesting that even absolute power cannot silence a troubled conscience. Traveling eastward, the imperial courts of China held secrets of staggering magnitude. Emperor Qin Shi Huang, the first emperor of unified China, was obsessed with immortality. While the world celebrates his monumental achievements, including the Terracotta Army, Fewer know about the dangerous experiments he conducted in his quest to cheat death. His alchemists were ordered to produce elixirs of eternal life, often made from mercury and poisonous minerals. Qin consumed these mixtures regularly, believing they would preserve his power forever. The emperor's entourage hid the truth from the population, fearing that knowledge of his desperation would undermine his authority. As the toxin slowly destroyed his mind and body, he issued increasingly erratic commands, including secret construction projects and the sealing of entire villages to protect his burial plans. When Qin finally died, ironically from the very elixirs meant to save him, his advisors hid the news for weeks to prevent political rebellion. They escorted his decaying body across the empire in a closed cart, masking the smell with rotting fish. The man who sought eternal life could not escape death, and those who served him carried the horror of maintaining the illusion of his immortality. In Japan, Emperor Meiji, the figure who led the country into modernity, carried a private burden rooted in the violent political upheavals of his youth. Though revered as a symbol of progress, Meiji's life was shaped by an early incident hidden from public memory: the assassination of his closest childhood companion, a young boy whose death was staged to appear accidental. The assassination was ordered by political figures who worried about the child's influence over the future emperor. Meiji was told the truth only years later, and it haunted him deeply. Publicly, he projected calm leadership. Privately, he grieved a friendship erased by ambition. Meiji's grief influenced many of his most progressive reforms, particularly those aimed at unifying a fractured nation. But the deeper truth was that he never fully trusted the political elites who surrounded him. His diaries, later censored, reveal coded references to the cost of the throne, a phrase historians believe refers to the secret that shaped his early years. While Japan celebrated his transition into a world power, its emperor bore the emotional wounds of betrayal. The story was buried to preserve his image as an unwavering leader, yet it reveals a humanity hidden beneath imperial symbols. Moving into Africa, the reign of King Shaka Zulu is remembered for military brilliance and sweeping reforms, yet one of his greatest secrets involved a psychological struggle rarely discussed. After the death of his mother, whom he adored, Shaka experienced a mental collapse that his closest generals tried urgently to hide from the people. Witnesses describe periods when Shaka wandered the hills alone, speaking to shadows as though they were living companions. His grief turned into paranoia, leading to brutal decisions that reshaped Zulu society. To preserve his legacy as a fearless warrior king, these moments of vulnerability were erased from official accounts. His generals carefully curated information to maintain the illusion of stability. They reported Shaka's decrees as acts of strength, even when those decrees emerged from emotional turbulence. If the people perceived their king as weak or unstable, rival clans would seize the opportunity to overthrow him. So, the truth was hidden, locked away in oral histories only whispered long after his death. Shaka's legacy remains monumental, but inside that legacy lies a human being whose pain was too dangerous to reveal. Power elevated him, but it also silenced the parts of him that struggled most. In the Middle East, the Ottoman Empire produced leaders whose secrets rivaled any in Europe. Sultan Suleiman the Magnificent ruled with remarkable wisdom, yet he concealed a personal tragedy involving the mysterious execution of his own son, Prince Mustafa. Officially, Mustafa was accused of treason, but later evidence suggests the charges were fabricated by palace factions who feared his popularity. Suleiman ordered the execution to maintain stability, but the decision shattered him privately. Letters from the period hint at sleepless nights and intense regret, emotions he was forced to suppress to preserve his image as a decisive ruler. The empire was told Mustafa was a threat to the throne, but closer examination reveals a father manipulated by those around him. The heartbreaking truth was hidden not only from the public, but also from the Sultan himself until it was too late. Suleiman spent the rest of his life visiting Mustafa's grave in secret, leaving offerings and lamenting the choices imposed by power. His grief was so profound that it shaped diplomatic decisions and even battle strategies. Beneath the opulent structure of the Ottoman court lay a man mourning a son he was deceived into condemning. Traveling back to Europe, the story of Queen Elizabeth I presents a monarch renowned for her strength and clever leadership, yet evidence points to a secret much more personal: the possibility of a hidden child. During her youth, Elizabeth was involved in a scandal with Thomas Seymour, a relationship the royal court attempted to erase from the historical record. Rumors circulated about a pregnancy, though no official documentation survives. Some believe a child was quietly removed from the palace and raised in secrecy to protect Elizabeth's claim to the throne. Whether true or not, the rumors alone pose a threat to her legitimacy. Elizabeth spent her reign carefully avoiding marriage, presenting herself as a virgin queen, a symbol of pure devotion to England. But behind this persona may have been a fear that old scandals would resurface. Her closest advisors destroyed letters and testimonies from the period, suggesting they wanted to bury something important. Elizabeth's strict control over her image and her emotional distance from romantic entanglements indicate someone guarding a painful secret. Her strength as a ruler is undeniable, yet her personal life remains one of the most meticulously censored chapters in royal history. Across the Indian subcontinent, the Mughal Emperor Akbar the Great is celebrated for religious tolerance and cultural unity. However, early in his life, he carried a secret involving a failed coup against his own father. As a teenager, Akbar was manipulated by nobles who convinced him that his father, Humayun, was too weak to rule. The young prince participated in early planning, but later withdrew, horrified by what he had almost done. The conspiracy was covered up after he became emperor, as revealing it would undermine his moral authority. Akbar spent years compensating through acts of justice and inclusion. Historians believe this early brush with betrayal shaped Akbar's lifelong commitment to fairness. Yet the guilt followed him. He frequently spoke about the mistakes of youth, but never publicly explained what those mistakes were. His private writings, protected for centuries, contain cryptic references to a shadow over the empire's foundation. Scholars now believe this shadow refers to the secret betrayal he tried desperately to forget. Akbar's reign is remembered as one of reconciliation, but it began in the darkness of manipulation and near treason, an irony that adds depth to his legacy. In Scandinavia, King Gustav III of Sweden carried a far more unusual secret, one involving a clandestine passion for theatrical performance. While not dangerous in itself, this passion became a political liability. Gustav would secretly perform in elaborate plays within hidden palace chambers, adopting disguises and taking on entire roles personally. He feared the public would see this as frivolous or childish. The king's devotion to the secret world provided him emotional escape from the pressures of ruling, yet also created vulnerabilities. When enemies discovered his hidden hobby, they used it to question his seriousness and sanity. Eventually, rumors spread about Gustav's private theatrics, fueling suspicions that he was disconnected from reality. These stories contributed to the conspiracy that ultimately led to his assassination. Ironically, something that brought him joy was twisted into evidence of instability. After his death, palace staff attempted to destroy the scripts, costumes, and personal notes that chronicled his secret creative life. Only fragments remain today. Gustav is remembered as an ambitious reformer, but behind his bold decisions stood a man who escaped into performances to cope with isolation, a secret that became fatal after being exposed. In West Africa, the kingdom of Dahomey produced one of its most remarkable monarchs, Queen Hangbi, a ruler whose story was nearly erased from history. Hangbi's existence was kept secret for generations because her reign challenged the traditional narrative of male leadership. After ascending the throne, she ruled briefly but effectively, until palace factions conspired to remove her and install her brother instead. To maintain political stability and preserve patriarchal tradition, historians were ordered to erase all evidence of her rule. Hangbi became a ghost in her own kingdom, remembered only through oral stories that quietly survived. The erasure of Hangbi was so thorough that for centuries she was believed to be a myth, but recovered artifacts and oral histories now reveal she played a critical role in the early development of the renowned Dahomey female warriors. Her leadership laid foundations that shaped the kingdom's military identity. The secret of her reign, hidden to maintain political power, reflects how monarchies sometimes manipulate history to control public perception. Hangbi's story shows that secrets don't always conceal crimes. Sometimes they conceal greatness, overshadowed by the ambitions of those who feared her influence. In the Americas, the Inca Empire's ruler Pachacuti rebuild his kingdom into a formidable power, but he carried a secret known only to a handful of trusted advisors, a prophecy foretelling the collapse of his empire. This prophecy came from a revered oracle and deeply troubled him. While Pakakudi presented himself as a god-king destined for eternal glory, he privately feared that everything he built would eventually be lost. This fear influenced decisions he made about expansion, diplomacy, and succession. The public saw a confident leader. In reality, Pakakudi was racing against a future he believed was already doomed. The prophecy became so distressing that Pakakudi ordered certain portions of it concealed, fearing that public knowledge would weaken morale. Oral guardians were executed or exiled to keep the secret safe. Ironically, the empire did collapse generations later, as predicted after Spanish conquest. Whether coincidental or not, the prophecy weighed heavily on Pakakudi's mind, influencing his governance in ways historians are still unraveling. His fear of destiny, hidden beneath sophisticated architecture and a mighty military, reveals a ruler haunted not by enemies but by time itself. Returning to Europe, King Charles II of Spain is often remembered for poor health and political instability, but few know the depth of the secret medical horrors his court concealed. Born from generations of inbreeding among Habsburg royals, Charles suffered from severe physical and cognitive disorders. Yet the monarchy desperately attempted to hide his condition to maintain confidence in his rule. Doctors wrote falsified reports. Foreign visitors were warned to avoid mentioning his disabilities, and palace walls were built with hidden corridors so servants could assist him without being seen. Charles struggled daily just to perform basic tasks expected of a king. While his subjects blamed sorcery or curses, the truth lay in generations of political marriages designed to keep power within the family. His advisors hid the extent of his suffering, because admitting it would invite foreign powers to challenge Spain's stability. Charles lived as a prisoner of expectations, forced to embody leadership despite profound limitations. His tragic story reveals how secrecy can be used not to protect a monarch but to exploit one, turning him into a symbol rather than a human being. In the Middle East, the ancient Egyptian pharaoh Akhenaten introduced dramatic religious changes that reshaped culture, but what he hid from his people was a chronic illness that left him physically frail. Artistic depictions portray him with elongated limbs and delicate features, a style once thought symbolic. But new evidence suggests these depictions were accurate reflections of his condition. Akhenaten sought to hide the extent of his frailty by presenting himself as a divine figure with a unique form, aligning his physical differences with spiritual uniqueness. It was an ingenious strategy to turn vulnerability into holy meaning. Yet behind a divine image lay a ruler battling pain and exhaustion. His reforms, including the controversial shift to monotheism, were influenced by a desire to create a legacy strong enough to compensate for his physical weakness. After his death, his successors attempted to erase every trace of him, believing his radical ideas and visible frailty threatened Egypt's stability. Temples were dismantled, inscriptions destroyed, and his name removed from lists of kings. Akhenaten's biggest secret, the truth of his condition, was hidden beneath layers of religious transformation, political fear, and historical revision. In the modern era, even monarchs with global visibility hold secrets the public may never fully understand. King George VI of the United Kingdom, father of Queen Elizabeth II, carried a deeply guarded secret, crippling anxiety and a severe stammer. While the world saw a poised figure leading Britain through World War II, he privately endured emotional battles that could have undermined the nation's morale. His speech difficulties were hidden through carefully controlled public appearances and intense private coaching. His vulnerability was considered too dangerous to reveal during a period when national confidence depended on the image of strong leadership. George VI's struggle was so consuming that he sometimes practiced speeches for hours until exhausted. Letters reveal his anxiety before major broadcasts, often fearing public humiliation. Yet his determination became the silent foundation of British resilience. His advisors worked tirelessly to maintain his public image, editing films, controlling press access, and managing appearances to hide the extent of his struggle. The king who inspired millions was simultaneously a man battling inner storms, proving that even modern monarchs carefully curate the line between public strength and private suffering. In Saudi Arabia, the founding monarch King Abdulaziz ibn Saud carried a secret few outside his circle knew, an ongoing internal conflict over the rapid modernization he initiated. While publicly confident in uniting disparate regions under a single kingdom, he privately feared that modernization would erode traditional values and ignite rebellion. His letters expressed deep anxiety about foreign influence and regret over certain decisions he felt would compromise cultural identity. The monarch who built a nation was simultaneously struggling with the weight of preserving its soul, a complexity kept away from public discourse. To maintain unity, his advisors suppressed internal disagreements and downplayed political turmoil. The public saw a leader guided by unwavering certainty, but reality told a different story. Abdulaziz often debated with himself in private, according to close associates, torn between progress and preservation. His hidden doubts highlight a universal truth. Monarchs are often forced to appear decisive even when navigating uncharted territory. His internal battle reflects the broader challenges of nation-building, where every decision shapes generations to come and every hesitation must remain in the shadows. Across the world, from Europe to Africa to Asia, monarchs have concealed secrets not out of malice alone, but out of survival. Their power was immense, yet so were the risks of vulnerability. A single revelation, illness, scandal, fear, regret, could unravel entire kingdoms. History remembers them as symbols, yet they were human beings burdened with expectations no ordinary person could endure. Behind every hidden truth lies a story of pressure, self-protection, and the crushing weight of leadership. We judge them from a distance, but few would survive the scrutiny they faced every day. Some monarchs hid crimes. Others hid pain. Some concealed weakness, while others concealed brilliance stolen from them by political rivals. But the common thread is that secrecy was their shield, shaped by societies that demanded perfection from imperfect people. Their darkest secrets reveal not only the realities of their lives, but also the expectations of the people they ruled. Monarchs were trapped as much as they were elevated, forced into a world where truth became dangerous and silence became their greatest defense. What makes these stories relatable is that, even today, people hide their fears, mistakes, and regrets behind curated images. Monarchs simply had more to lose. Their secrets remind us that appearances can be deceiving and that even the most powerful individuals struggle with insecurity and pressure. The palaces may differ from our everyday lives, but the emotional burdens, fear of judgment, fear of failure, fear of being misunderstood, remain universally human. These hidden histories remind us that power cannot erase vulnerability. It only conceals it better. When we look at these monarchs not as distant legends, but as people shaped by circumstance, their secrets become more than historical curiosities. They become windows into the human condition. Their struggles with identity, morality, and fear mirror the challenges people face today in their own lives, albeit without royal consequences. The darker their secrets, the clearer the message. Humans, regardless of status, are defined not only by what we show the world, but also by what we keep hidden deep inside. The stories of these monarchs echo through time, reminding us that history is never as pure as it seems. Every palace has locked rooms, every crown has its shadows, and every kingdom has stories whispered but never written. These secrets, buried by fear, protected by loyalty, or erased by time, shape our understanding of the past in ways we are only beginning to uncover. The truth may be uncomfortable, but acknowledging it brings us closer to the real people behind the power. In the end, the darkest secrets hidden by famous monarchs reveal a paradox. The higher the throne, the heavier the burden. Their stories challenge the myth of invulnerability and remind us that even those remembered as great leaders grapple with fear, shame, love, loss, and overwhelming responsibility. These secrets don't diminish their legacies. They deepen them. They remind us that behind every crown beats a human heart, fragile and complex, carrying truths that history was never meant to see.